Me?
Perfectly.
Right, great. Okay, hi, my name is Philipp. I'm 26 years old and I'm a psychiatric nurse from Austria, Vienna. I worked for 2.5 years on the ward for children and young adult psychiatry. And today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of relationship, a bit about the human psyche, and of course, how all that fits into learning in a way. So just for the beginning, there's an Austrian physicist who was called Anton Zeilinger. He's also been a candidate for the physics Nobel Prize. And when he was asked about teaching at the university, he said the funny thing about starting like to train students who start physics is that they're never really there because they love physics so much, but they had a really good teacher in school. So we often associate like learning with situations in schools and tests. But as we already heard before, we start learning the moment we are born, actually already as an infant, especially if it comes to emotions. If you look at psychology or psychoanalytic theory from the last century, like in the second half, there was a new concept created, which called the competent infant, simply meaning that a child is more than just wah wah. It is already feeling and already learning. The human psyche can only constitute itself because there's a you. The I can only become because there's a you. In most cases, in the early stages, it's the mother or the father. So I'm going to put some perspective here in the story. Now try to imagine a little girl, okay? And it's a typical situation in the household. So the little girl was supposed to do the dishes and when the dad came home, but the girl didn't do it. So the dad is really angry at her and he goes to her and tells her, you know what? I am so angry right now at you. If you don't do the dishes, you didn't do the dishes, I'm angry at you. So what happens in this moment? The little girl, she learns and she's confronted with her father's emotions. But in that second, she learns that she is responsible for his anger because she didn't do that, which is a fallacy because we are never, ever responsible for other people's emotions. We can trigger certain emotions in other people, but we are never, ever responsible for them. So confronted with her father's emotions, there comes a new emotion into play, one we really, really all like, guilt. Guilt is a really strong emotion. So we have whole religions based on guilt. So why is the girl developing guilt? Because being confronted with her father's emotions in this uncontrollable way, the guilt is a way how she can take control, how she can take responsibility. And now I'm going to go a step further, just to warn you, this is going to be a harsher topic. On the children and young adult psychiatry, I obviously worked with a lot of abuse victims. Now, if we go a bit more in the future, what you really often see when the woman was raped or sexually abused is this typical talk of maybe her skirt was so short and she shouldn't have been there in that neighborhood. And of course, in one way, this is just patriarchal bullshit. We all know that, but it is more complicated because if you work with victims who actually suffered from abuse, you will find a really interesting dynamic. It is the same dynamic of guilt. Very often women or the victims then say, yeah, maybe it was my fault because I wore that skirt. Maybe it was my fault because I didn't say no soon enough. And also, this is, of course, a problem. But the function is that, again, here, having learned that like guilt to control an uncontrollable situation, the guilt helps to control this again and to give you a sense of control over a situation that was never in your, like you could have never controlled it. It's never your fault if you get raped. Obviously not. No victim of abuse is ever it's own fault. Just to give you a little bit of an idea. And we also see this with young boys or young girls, for example. You all notice that the father is probably very absent and the boy doesn't get a lot of space. So one day he walks in and he, I don't know, trashes something down, like a plate or something. So the father gets angry and he beats him. But for the first time in a long time, the boy actually gets attention from the father. And also here, a process of learning starts. Because then you will see growing up as a young adult that this boy, in our case, is going to bring himself again and again in situations. And we also have this in classroom violence, because they never learned to receive attention or good-hearted feelings in any other way than being destructive. And this is trained into us. And this takes a long time of therapy to understand the mechanism behind that. So next up, I want to focus again on the importance of the teacher when it comes to learning. So, and for that, I would like to give you a small example from my own life. When in nursing school, I met my now mentor and good friend, Dr. Johann Steinberger. So he is a doctor in psychotherapy sciences. And I was really fascinated in the way he taught. It was different. Like we were talking a lot about emotions and stuff. So I bought a book from him. It was a book where a patient with borderline personality disorder wrote love letters to one of his trainees, and he analyzed in the book those love letters to talk about the psyche. And there was a part about sexuality, and I read that part and I was like, I don't know, this seems so outdated, this seems so old school. So what I did, like in the next session with him, I went in and I said to him, hey, I like what you wrote there, but honestly, this stuff about sexuality, this is so old and outdated. So there I was, completely green behind my ears, like with no in-field experience, telling a doctor of psychotherapy sciences that his book is shit. Now you can imagine that you can't do this in every context, and that there will be a lot of professors who will probably just say, what are you saying? Like come to the place where I am. Yeah, I'm a professor, I've learned a lot. And after that, I actually felt a bit guilty. And I was like scared. I was like, damn, that was too much. What did I think? I should learn more, etc., etc. But what happened in the next session is that he came to me and said, actually, what you said, that was really good. I think you are right, because back then I had another perspective and you taught me something. And to go one step further, this helped me to gain confidence in myself. So when I had my first victim of a suicide, a patient I really liked, he just walked off the station and killed himself, I felt a lot of anger. Now, if you deal with suicide in general, people very, very often don't allow themselves the emotions they're feeling, because they think, oh, it's just terrible, I don't know what I'm feeling. But a lot of cases, if you have near family or friends, they will feel a lot of anger at the person. So I walked in again to my mentor and said, I don't know, I'm just angry at that guy, because we were just talking and now he just killed himself and I don't know what to do and I'm angry at him. I did that because I knew from the first time that I could trust my feeling, and that actually helped me to deconstruct the suicide, and also to understand that the aggression and our emotions are extremely important when it comes to learning, also that the aggression, or to understanding other human beings, the aggression was also part of the aggression he felt, because committing suicide is the most aggressive act you can do against your own body. Why am I telling you this again? There's something, I think, it doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a trainer, a pedagogue, it doesn't matter. There's an importance in teaching and in learning, and that is the ability to lose. The ability that one day the people you are training, yeah, it doesn't matter if they're adults or young adults, they will reach a point where they don't need you anymore. And it's a bit like my mentor did. He said, hey, what you said back then, yeah, that was good. I learned from that. So we can see the position of student and master is actually something that is changing. And also, especially if you work with young adults on psychiatric ward, yeah, they need you, they hate you, they love you, they have all the emotions, you know. But at some point, they go out into the world and they live their own life and they don't need you anymore. And this is such an important moment. Because if we are always role models, and we can also teach how it is to lose in a way. And the generation that comes, I mean, look at the human species. We're developing from generation to generation to generation. And it's so important to understand, and this is something I see in hierarchical structures very often, also in the hospitals, is a generation is in power or is in positions of power who cannot accept that its time is over in a way. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't make them worthless. You can help and support the new generations after that. But it's very often lost because people completely clinch to this idea of being the master and not becoming a student again. Relationship is the most important thing when it comes to teaching and learning. And to now come to the final part, I had a history teacher, and I loved history. Of course, I also loved it before because my mom loved history and she taught me a lot when I was a child. So in school, I loved history. After I graduated, I went to university, and I suddenly found myself in this huge classroom with so many different students and no teacher who was really graspable for me. You know, I couldn't really connect with her, you know, and I felt lost in university. And although I loved history, there was no teacher there, no relationship. So I actually quit and went into nursing. So just try to remember the next time, if someone tells you a story about something that's fascinated him in school or in teaching, he's not going to tell you, damn, back in 5th grade, it was history book, page 230 that really made it. No, you probably had a good teacher. Thank you.